processes of democratic consolidation, strengthen the structures so as to solidify those values that promote democracy, good governance, and good neighborliness, and open boundless opportunities for all Nigerians to be and to feel that they are part of the evolving political process and socio-economic advancement. This is equally in line with our realization that our current political arrangement has some identified distortion, effects, and limitations that call for urgent, focus, and realistic attention. Yeah. Hence, this initiative of political and electoral reform. Our history as a nation shows very clearly that we have been through some difficult times. We have missed great opportunities. We as lawmakers of like minds and committed to the 10th House agenda of building a strong democracy that works for all using legislative instruments. And let us at this point appreciate our Speaker, Tajuddin Abbas, and his able Deputy Speaker Benjamin Carlo for the commitment they have shown in keeping to their promises that they will work with all stakeholders towards strengthening of laws via constitutional amendments, which give us the confidence to step forward with our only two contributions that, if considered, will help build a stronger Nigeria where justice, equity, and good governance shall reign supreme. It is our desire to notify the general public that as part of our firm commitment to see a new and working Nigeria, an effective and efficient nation where justice and equity reign supreme, we, a group of over 30 reform-minded lawmakers from different political parties who have come together and committed to ensuring a working Nigeria using legislative instruments within our power to ensure the reduction of cost of governance and campaigns, unite our country, ensure a seamless transition and continuity and independence of INEC, including efficient use of state resources, tackling of nepotism and corruption in our electoral process. There is no doubt that our country is in desperate need of a long-lasting solution to our economic situation. Insecurity, disunity, weak institutions, weak healthcare and education sector, and waste of state resources. We have now reached a critical phase where that what is at stake is the very survival of Nigeria as one political and economic unit. We must rise to the challenge, and what we do with this opportunity given to us by our people matters a lot. We, the reformers, elected representatives of the people from different political parties and strong like minds, are committed on proving that we are fully capable of managing our affairs together as a nation. Hence, as the first step in our commitment, we are presenting to the public bills and proposals which we are pushing on the floor of the 10th Assembly. Most of them have gone through first reading. These bills will touch on every aspect of development in all sectors of our economy and well-being as a nation. These bills, which are 50 in numbers, most of them have gone through first reading. But today, we are starting with public unveiling of 6 of them, while the remaining will come in the weeks ahead. It ranges from governance, economic restructuring, security, justice sector reform, to social bills that will target unifying our nation and ensuring long-lasting peace and national cohesion. The reformers are cognizant of the fact that Nigeria in times past has deliberated on and accepted some of the proposals in the bills. We are presented in several reform processes, including the Ways Electoral Reform, Ikenga Electoral Reform, the Dodgy Civil Service Reform, the Compact Report, the Ambassador Jonathan, IBP and Abacha Reform Effort, and several others. These works by eminent Nigerians, including lawmakers in the past, have been long abandoned despite the time and resources committed to them. It is time we revisited those reports, adopt some of the silent proposals, and adjust them to fit the current realities. Therefore, the bills presented today will address that proposal. On governance, and political restructuring, we are seeking alteration to the 1999 Constitution as amended, with the bill we have that have gone through first reading, seeking to amend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to create a single term of 6 years for the office of the President and state governors, recognize Nigeria's seat of political zones, and provide for the rotation of the office of President, state governor, and local government chairman among the inherent regions and zones, and also to provide for elections in one day. Now, And also that flows into the Electoral Act, where we're also seeking for an amendment to provide that elections to the offices of the President, state governors, National Assembly, state houses of assembly, and FCT area council shall be conducted simultaneously on the same date, which is to be determined by INEC in consultation with the National Assembly. What we are seeking here is that instead of wasting money going for elections from one Saturday to another, that the country can gain more if all elections are held in one day. The advantage in this is that there's going to be high turnout of voters on election day. There's going to be high level of vigilance from voters. And once the first result is announced at the lower level of the elections, the accreditation remains the same and cannot change by the time you get to the presidency. So single day election will save us resources, will bring more participation, and will ensure the credibility of the electoral process. Also, the other one is, the third one is a bill seeking to amend the Electoral Act to provide for the hearing and determination of all election petitions by the respective election petition tribunal and the appellate court in accordance with specified timelines before the swearing in of successful candidates at the election. And also a 14 days deadline for issuance of CTC of election materials to petitioners after the announcement of the results. And we're also pushing for a 1-year imprisonment for non-compliance against the reg or any concerned electoral officer, plus 7 years imprisonment with that option of a fine for any returning officer who declares a false result not uploaded to the server or via the INEC electronic transmission devices, including results that the accreditation figures didn't tally with the number of vote cards. Also included in our proposal is conclusion of all pre-election matters 30 days before the date of the election. It's important that we solve this once and for all, that the election cannot hold and people are still in court battling over who is the candidate the people voted for. Voters must have the power to know who they are voting for. Hence, pre-election matters must be concluded before we go into voting. Now, it's also important that those who lost the election as a result of false declaration by an electoral officer can now, under the new proposal, have a right to bring an action personally against that electoral officer who violated the Electoral Act in damages and in prosecution. Now, the key highlights of this political and electoral reform, like we have just read, is focusing on, like I said before, we have other ones on economic reforms, social reforms, and so on and so forth, which are going to come later, but we're taking off with this, is that this energy we spend in battling over which of the zones should produce, issues of inclusion and so on and so forth, and the attendant costs can be waived if we all agree that power should rotate between north and the south and among the six political zones. And also, the amount of money and distraction that goes into seeking for second term and how politicians, because they want to get a second term, will not be concentrating much on what they are supposed to do. We now said, let's have a 6-year single term so that once you're elected, you know that you have a mandate to run for 6 years without fearing anybody or anything, as long as you're in line with the provision of the law. And that also goes with ensuring that the electoral process is credible with all elections holding in a single day. And then one will say, if we say it's a 6-year single term, what if the president dies? And then are we going to have a repeat of what happened in the time of Jonathan when another person comes from another zone and it might distort that zoning arrangement? We have put provisions in place to ensure that when we say it's 6 years single term for a particular zone, it remains 6 years and it can never change. And that is why the bill is now proposing for the position of 2 vice presidents. One will be a vice president for succession, which will come from the same zone with the president, and the other one will be vice president administration from the other part of the country. And what that means is that in the event of death of the president or impeachment of the president, the second vice president's succession assume office immediately and complete the remainder of that time and cannot seek any election. With that, if it is the turn of the north or the east and they have 6 years, that 6 years will remain 6 years and it will not change. Because even if it's impeached or even if the president dies, the second vice president's succession will be sworn in immediately to complete the remainder of that time. And also, in order not to incur extra costs of the country, this vice president will now have ministerial status, being the only vice president, being the minister, only minister from that state. So instead of having 2 ministers, it's going to be 1 minister. Once that person is elected as the vice president's succession, he automatically becomes minister for that state. So we are not going to spend extra costs maintaining that office. And also the issue of financial autonomy and accountability of local governments is also to ensure that that is equally in place. That we also have to do also. So we want to conclude this press conference by greeting all Nigerians of all walks of life on this historic day. Our men and women in the different sectors of the economy, our vibrant youth, persons with disabilities, our law enforcement agencies, our traditional leaders, political leaders, fathers of our communities and custodians of our culture and heritage, our religious leaders, custodians of faith and morals, our effective civil society organizations, and the media. This task ahead of us is huge and cannot be achieved without you. It is a task for all of us. Our work does not go beyond taking the initiative to get them into Parliament. To ensure that the bills are successful is on all of us. Call up all your representatives in the National Assembly and solicit their support for 6 year single-term presidents, rotation of the presidency between North and South and among the political zones, all elections in 1 day, and also more importantly, to ensure that all those who lose the elections and seek for certificate or certified true copies gets that within 14 days. And also to avoid a situation whereby you'll be seeking for this document and the time for filing your petition elapses. So such things will not happen again if we go by this proposal. And to make sure that it's mandatory and compulsory that the election result must be electronically transmitted. And whosoever transmits a result or announces a result that is not electronically transmitted or the figures does not tally with the total number of vote cast is going in for 7 years imprisonment without any option of fine. Lobby, participate in the hearings and use of all manners of platforms, digital media, social media, traditional media, to advocate for the passage of these critical reform bills. Ours is a commitment to building a united, stable, and prosperous nation. And with your contribution, cooperation, and support, Nigeria can and must become a great and modern nation. With true conscience and determination, let us join hands and rededicate ourselves to the service of this great country so that it will be a place we can be proud of. We cannot afford to fail in this task, and by the grace of God, we shall succeed. We ultimately thank our fellow members of the Federal House of Representatives, the 10th House, the People's House, and more importantly, the leadership of the House, led by our able Speaker, Tajuddin Abbas, A.M. Zazu, and Benjamin Okezie, Deputy Speaker, Otabri Bentley, for the focused leadership and for a well-researched and strategic legislative agenda that have inspired us today, even as we further seek their support in ensuring we achieve our common prosperity. We salute the Speaker for constituting the Constitutional Amendment Committee chaired by the Deputy Speaker, who has the great capacity required in delivering the task ahead. We have confidence in them and our colleagues that our proposal will be supported. May God bless our country and may God bless you all. Thank you. And at this juncture, let me invite my brothers to make their brief comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen of the press, my wonderful colleagues. You all will agree with us that our proposal is based on very detailed research in attempting to cure defects that we all are very much aware of. Like we often say, the law is like a living thing. It could die, it could be sick. And in appreciating the fact that these laws requiring amendments are obviously sick and requires medication, we will not pretend not to have known the several agitations over time of where the presidency should go. When it goes north, those in the south will begin to clamor. The next will be our turn. And in most cases, people don't get the turns because they just wish in their turn. Same goes for several areas, several states, where we begin to hear things like, oh, the central has gone, the south has gone. Accepting people might be disadvantaged. But if we cure these defects with these amendments, everybody would be guaranteed that sometime you will have the opportunity, and that will bond us the more. We're also aware of a certain declaration that was made in Adamawa State like this. If we had this form of legislation, that would never have taken place. We know the danger that can cure if that situation was not managed properly. Adamawa State could have had a lot of crises because of that declaration. We are also aware of complaints by legal experts representing interests at the various tribunals that they approach the election management body and they've always refused or delayed or even denied giving them materials that they require to prove their cases. Having gone through all of this, there is that desire, there is the need to collectively seek how to resolve the issues. And you cannot resolve them except we confront these laws like we are doing today. We have not said that what we are telling Nigerians should just be taken as is. We all have the opportunity to further help in refining, in distilling the final product to guarantee that what we will have would lead to economic prosperity, political stability, and the greater security and inclusiveness of all of us. You also will agree that at different times our interests could differ. Some persons would want to travel home because they have a candidate who wants to contest for probably the House of Assembly. And the other elections won't have anything to do with them, they don't bother. So if you aggregate diverse interests, you would find out that voter turnout would definitely improve. A greater number of people will now participate in determining who takes the lead, who takes charge of our affairs. And if the elections are conducted in one day, the advantage is that we will save a whole lot of resources that will be channeled to development. There are sectors in this country whose budgetary allocations are probably a little less than 200 billion naira. And in an election year, you find us budgeting over 400 billion just for elections. And if you split it, probably 60-40, you will have over 200 billion that a certain sector would have needed to perfect their development for that year. So if elections are conducted in one day, you would save a whole lot. of resources. Putting this together, I believe, as seated, you will become apostles, you become advocates for these amendments, supporting the group of 35 lawmakers who have taken up this challenge. I want to thank all of us, believing that our appeal for support is taken. Various media houses will take on this discourse, take on this debate, take on this advocacy. At the end of the day, what we will have will be the overall interest and benefit of Nigerians.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, the press. I remain Honorable Dr. Midala Usman Balani. I represent Askira Uba, our federal constituency from Borno State. Thank you. Just to add to what my colleagues have already said, if we look at the bill we seek to pass, the bill summarizes unity. It talks also about peace and stability of Nigeria. We believe that for any development to happen, we must be united in Nigeria, and Nigeria must be peaceful. And it is on this purpose that we look at it that coming up with a single term, most especially looking at a rotation from the south and from the northern part of Nigeria, it can provide some stability to Nigeria, and we'll be able to work together to enhance development. You will agree with me that we have a lot of young people that have gone through difficulties, schools, and now we have one of number of unemployed young people that are out there. We have human potentials in Nigeria. We must harness these potentials. The world is ruled by ideas, and these ideas, we must be able to harness these ideas to be able to trigger and facilitate the development we want to tap. We want to ensure that all potential of young people is utilized. That is by providing opportunity for a rotation from the presidency to the governorship and the local government election. Given this full participation, you will understand that people will have roles to play at different levels, and Nigeria will be better off. We cannot continue to do the same thing over and over and expect different things. And that is why you will see these committed reformers are here to say, let's think differently, let's do things differently, and ensure that Nigeria have a choice. Nigeria have something to say, this is working, this we need to alter it, and we must work together as a team, united, peacefully, and ensure that Nigeria develops. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the press, my name is Honorable Professor Paul Nant. I present the great people of Enugu East and issues of federal constituency. I am from Enugu State. It's little wonder why I am here, because I also think I belong to two arts. I haven't come from the academics into this, the National Assembly. I also want to say that what we are here doing is that is to tell the world that our economy, our progress, our good governance is tied to good and effective and transparent election. If we don't have good election, there's no way you can give what you don't have. If you come by bad election, you give us bad election because you want to sustain what you come in. The people of the country are tired of the vicious circle. Every year election reform, and we have performed nothing. We want to focus on the outcome now, and also the process. But also to get a good outcome, you have to have a good work process. In this case, we want the election to be held the same day. That is one. And the second one, over-focus, over-indulgence in re-election campaign has dealt with large blows to the country, where every day, every time one is elected, he leaves governance, and move on to politicking from the first day. And we found out that what to do is vicious equity governance. Why people continue to do things that they would look at as what they should show as a look at for another election. Not actually a long-term plan for people-oriented projects that will grow our economy and others. What they do, what that entails, is that our people will now focus on legacies, not re-election. And when people focus on legacies, that legacy is what entails good governance. If you don't have, you are now focused on not who comes after you or not who coming back, or what you leave on ground for the people and for the one child. That is what we're lacking. We'll lack that adequate planning and to follow it through. And that's why this particular process, these reforms legislation have come together to make sure that they give our people the yearnings of good governance. It's not about you see governance, you feel governance, you feel good governance. When it's not there, it's not there. When it's there, it's there. There is no game saying that our constitution needs amendment. Everybody knows it needs that. Everybody knows who have lacked political will to do the needful for a long time. And this is the time. And I'm confident that with your support, the 10th National Assembly will do exactly the yearnings of the country. There's a lot of defects, and I think this is the time to correct those defects. This includes electoral process is a dynamic process. But now, what we need is single term to curtail the nepotism in the country, to curtail the corruption in the country, to curtail electoral violence, to curtail electoral rigging and malpractice. These are when at every point the youth are liberated to come and vote and come and do this. One thing or other will come to them as a surprise. And it sends us back to more than 10 years back. And I think this is the right time for our people to show direction. And what we're here today doing is to show direction and for others to see whether interrogate it and see where we're wrong, because this is not the final point. So that at the end, we'll give Nigeria what they need, and we're confident that with God's grace, that the country will be better with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen of the press. Actually, if you look at what's happening today, it is bringing Nigeria closer to being what Nigeria should be. By the way, my name is Honorable Akane Martin Mogu. I speak for the people of Abon State, in of all of federal constituency. I am from this class. Now, why has it taken us so long to come to this point? It is simply because when you recycle, at a point, the products can never be useful anymore. You have to throw them away and bring in new products. That is why if you are involved in recycling, at a point you don't need those products anymore. Nigeria needs a total holistic change in terms of our electoral process. My colleagues have enumerated many of the reasons why we are doing what we are doing. But most importantly, if one is elected and he knows that he has a term of 6 years, he will perform for the 6 years. Because he is interested in his legacy. But these elections every 4 years makes it difficult for people. They perform for 3 years, believing that we have this taking span that says, okay, he has performed. Then the next 4 years, they do whatever they want to do and go. Because they have already elected them. But if we make it a 6-term single term, people will start working from the first day until their last day. Secondly, our elections being held the same day seizes these or scattered elections where undue influences causes the outcome. In most elections that are scattered, the challenges are there, but they are in charge of the security and other apparatus of the electoral process. That is the more reason why we must bring this thing to the table. Let Nigeria begin to behave like those countries that are democratic. If there is going to be scattered elections, let it be as a result of impeachment or death, but not because an electoral umpire or the court ruled that as a governor on this particular day, for that particular day you are sworn in, and then they will discount the number of days that the election was held. So your time starts running from that day. What that means is that if you are in power, you control the state. So we believe that when we all join together, that's why we are seeking your help here, and begin to bring things to the table. Nigerians will know that yes, there is better ways to do things. I really appreciate the number I'm seeing here today covering this, and I believe with your help, Nigeria will be a better place to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my honorable colleagues. Good afternoon, gentlemen of the press. I think all have been said by my colleagues, but there are some salient points I want to bring out. The rotation we are conversing for in the federation between the north and the south, we want it to be taken down to the states, where the senatorial districts too, the governorship will be rotated between the 3 territorial districts of each state. Those of us from Kogi State and Benue State, for example, knows what is happening in our states, if not by divine intervention. There are people from my own zone and from the Kogi Central that we were able to have it after 16 or so years from the other senatorial districts. I'm sure those of you from Benue State know what is happening. If this can be accepted and adopted in the new coming constitution that is being proposed, the review constitution, it will bring harmony and more development to those states. Secondly, you all agree with me, especially those of us in the National Assembly, we went through hell before some of us are sworn in, and some members lost out. The harrowing experience of going through court processes. After you are being sworn in, you will still be in court. Some people have spent 6 months before they were pushed out by the courts. We are now saying let all these processes be concluded before members are inaugurated or sworn in, as the case may be. All this we were doing in the interest of the public, of the Nigerian citizens. One, if all elections are held in the same day, it will reduce cost. Two, if all electoral matters are concluded before winners are sworn in, it will reduce cost. Some members have been paid. Some people have taken benefits before the court will tell them to go back home. And that is still telling on the legal resources of this country. So I want to urge you all, let's take this home. Let us look at it. Dot the T's and B. Dot the I's and cross the T's. And Nigeria will be better off for it. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen of the press. And let me thank in a special way our colleagues who represented the other 35 members of our like minds here. Let me start by appreciating Honorable Ali Mustafa from Kaduna State, Professor Nnachi from Enugu, Honorable Danga Malik from Kogi, Honorable Matthew Mobu from Imo, Honorable Sagi Kogi from Kano State NPP, and Honorable Vidala Usman from Borno State, on behalf of the other 35 members who are co-sponsoring the bill. And for some of you that are joining us live, today was a public unveiling of draft proposals that were presented on the floor of the Parliament that will be coming up for second reading and to seek the buy-in of Nigerians and our distinguished colleagues. And these bills are centered on the following foundation: a single tenure of 6 years, rotation of power between North and South and among the geopolitical zones and the senatorial zones for the governorship, and also single tenure for the presidency and single tenure for the governorship 6 years, removing the billions we spend in re-election and the uncertainty it brings to the electoral process, plus the corruption it also brings. And also, we are seeking for all elections to be conducted in one day, reducing the cost of conducting election, getting more citizens involved on election day, and reducing to the barest minimum the possibility of rigging, because you will have those interested in the presidency, in the governorship, in the state assembly, in the national assembly, in the local government, all turning up to vote for their different candidates. Each of the polling units will be populated, and that can help to provide a lot of defense. And we're also pushing for all pre-election matters to be settled 30 days before election to avoid the situation that people are sworn in and we are still in court on who is the candidate of that political party. And also that post-election litigation should focus only on the outcome of the election, not on the things that happen before the primaries, because those things do not matter once the people make their decision. And that is why before the people make their decision, all pre-election matters must be settled. And also post-election litigations must be decided before the person is sworn in. That means we are tinkering with the timeline for the election to give you and accommodate the fact that every litigation must be addressed before swearing in. And also mandatory transmission of results and 7 years with option of no fine for any electoral officer who makes any announcement of a false result that is not in tandem with the result that is expected to be electronically transmitted from the polling unit alongside the accreditation. And also trying to legalize the innovation by INEC, where the dashboard also have the number of accreditation popping up automatically, different from whether you transmit or you don't transmit. This was to help for us to automatically know the total number of people who protest in that particular area. With this, we come to the end of our briefing, and we thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, and God bless.
Get on here.